right, good evening. My name is Paul Terranova, and I am the director here at this amazing place that I have had the privilege to be a part of now for 17 and a half years. So as we were talking about all of this, the connections to health and all that, it got me thinking, and it actually helped me in a way that has nothing to do with health. But there's this thing that happens to me. I do a lot of talks, right? And probably, maybe a couple times a year, I'll be doing a talk, and I'll be sharing a story of some, wonderful young person or family or community member, volunteer, someone who has been coming to the center for years or decades. Maybe there's a second or third generation getting involved, and I'll be telling this story, and some bolder than most person, most people may have this question, but some bolder person will say, no offense, but isn't that a failure? Shouldn't you have been able to make it so that that person doesn't need the services of the center, or doesn't need low-income housing, doesn't need all these things? And it was interesting because, I didn't have a quick answer for that. And those of you who know me know I have a long answer for that. I have a long answer for a lot of things about, social dynamics and histories of oppression and blah, blah, blah. But that's not really what you have a chance to do in this short presentation. And this conversation about health really helped me kind of develop the short answer for that. And it goes something like this. Building community isn't an intervention. Galvanizing the community to take care of itself isn't like penicillin. Putting people in relationship with each other so they can do more together than they could by themselves isn't like surgery. These aren't things that you do once and hope you never have to do again. Community is a lot more like clean water, right? It's something that we need to have a decent life. It's not always enough to overcome every tragedy and injustice that we face, but when we don't have it, we're much more vulnerable, and when we do have it, we're much more resilient. It's also, this analogy worked for me also because it's something that we have to work for. I mean, quite frankly, for a lot of the most powerful economic and political forces in our country, it's an afterthought. And so we have to be the ones who make it. We have to be the ones who create it, who develop it, who protect it, who maintain it, right? And I know from being here that this center is a place where we do that. It could be Nikki and Taikia working with younger kids in the community. It could be the high schoolers who are having conversations about mall curfews or gender as a spectrum. They're doing community actions and community service. It can be Richard, who's handling our sound over there, who's building the radio station to amplify the voices of people who are not often heard. There's so many ways. It can be, I think Jim and Trudy, I think Trudy's here. We got a group, Trudy and Kathleen and Jim, who are kind of the core volunteers who help push 30,000 pounds of food through our food pantry in a year. There's so many ways that people are doing that here. And I recognize that this has been a hard year. A hard year both in the big picture and in people's everyday lives. I know we see it playing out every day when we work here. A lot of people have kind of talked about this year as this radical change in direction in our country, but I don't necessarily think it's a change in direction. For me, it's felt like an acceleration on the part of some forces that have been active all along. And, those of you who know me probably also heard me talking about an amazing book by Ibram Kendi about the history of racist ideas in America and the way that every kind of milestone in racial progress has been also followed by a progress in racism, right? There's always this back and forth, always these things, and that's the challenge for us. The challenge for us is how are we going to meet this acceleration in fear and hostility with an acceleration for love and justice? That's our job. And there are a lot of ways to do that. For some people, it's primarily about resistance. For some people, it's primarily about fighting against what's coming down, stopping the changes that are happening. And for other people, it's more about creating and maintaining and defending spaces for joy and healing, right? For nurturing each other and for support. For a lot of us, it's both. We have to find that balance, but we have to do it. It brought me back to something that we said from the very beginning when we were building the center, and those of you who've been around for a while have heard me say it a number of times, This idea that when we live next door to each other, we're just residents. It's not until we start taking care of each other that we become community members. And it's not until we start seeing this larger group of people as us, as we, as the people as ours, until we start claiming each other and being willing to stand up for each other in our public lives, that we really become citizens. It's clear to me that this is a time that we have to step up as citizens, not just in some distant theoretical way, but in person, not on Facebook, but in reality and in relationship and in action, in those messy and uncomfortable situations where we fail or we succeed and then we keep going. I'm clear that the LCEC is one place that we can do that. I see amazing people doing it all the time. Young people who are getting into their activism. Those of you who met Agnes in the elementary room, getting the kids doing all kinds of crazy science experiments. When she came in to meet with Brian this time, her first question was, "Can we light things on fire?" Yes. There are so many ways to do this. That is the beauty of a community center. We are a vessel, and we are a place for you to come and bring your gifts. So there's a place for you in this work. There's a place for you in this center. I invite you to be a part of it, and I thank you for everything you're doing. Thank you.